It was around this time of year, 16 years ago, that my father-in-law died. I really loved that man. He was about 6'4", with white hair, very broad-chested, big man, a powerful Methodist preacher in Memphis, Tennessee. He enjoyed many things in life, especially eating. Often on vacations, we would plan our menu way ahead. What are we going to eat tonight was his favorite subject. One day, he was in the grocery store pushing a cart, I guess, and he ran into one of his parishioners, a woman with her little girl, and they talked for a little bit. The next Sunday, the mother came up to him and said, "After we saw you in the grocery store, my daughter," and she was about 4, "was very quiet. We went through the checkout line and we got in the car and I said, 'Honey, is everything okay? You're awfully quiet.' She said, 'Mom, I'm confused.' And I said, 'Well, what's wrong? Why are you confused?' And she said, 'Mom, why was God in the grocery store?' Why was God in the grocery store? Did you know that since the Middle Ages, this third of the 4 Sundays of Advent has had a pink candle? And some people think it's because of Mary. No. We read about her next week. The pink candle is called Gaudete Sunday. It's supposed to stand for the joy of the good news that we hear from John the Baptist today. But what John the Baptist says today, well, at first glance, it doesn't sound very good, does it? John the Baptist was trying to convince the Jews that God could be found outside of the temple. You see, the Jews believed that if they wanted to say a potent prayer, they had to go to the temple to do it. So John the Baptist moved. He had lived his whole life around the temple. His father was the high priest, but he decided to move out of town. He started preaching in the desert. And he was so charismatic and so amazing that people actually left Jerusalem. They walked out into the dry, barren desert where they could get dehydrated and die just to hear him preach. He was that good. And when they got out there, John baptized them. But then he said, "You guys are all snakes. You think that you can get into heaven because of who you're related to. But that's not how it works." You see, the Jews were taught that because they were descendant from Abraham, they was all good, basically. You know, just don't mess up too much, but you'll get to go to God because you are born in the right tradition. But John says, no, that's not the case. What you do in this life really matters. What you do defines your relationship with God. And whether you're going to get to see God face to face. And so they say, well, then tell us what we're supposed to do. And just like my father-in-law used to put together recipes for dinner, John the Baptist gives a simple recipe for how we're supposed to live our lives. And what's so interesting to me about it is he doesn't talk about praying. Everything that he says has to do with what you're doing with your stuff and your money and how you live your life out there in the grocery store. and everywhere else. First thing he says is, you've got to share. If you've got 2 coats, give away one of them. If you have extra food, give that away. So if you and I want to think about our relationship with God, we've got to look at our balance sheet. You've got to ask yourself, am I sharing? Do I have to have everything I have, or are there some things that I can give away? And it's something that is between you and God. I can't tell you, but you'll know when you get that sweet spot, when you're giving away enough, because you'll feel this joy. It'll bubble up inside of you. But Christmas shouldn't be just about you giving each other presents or your family or loved ones. It should be about you giving more than that. All of us. The second thing he said was, don't lie. To the tax collectors, he said, don't lie. Don't tell people that you need to collect more than what's due. Just be honest. Tell the truth. You know, it's hard in this country to really not lie. Our media lies to us. We like to make things sound better to one another than what they really are. And sometimes I lie to myself. In fact, sometimes I think I lie more to myself than anybody else. I'll tell you a big fat lie at Christmas time, okay? I call it the Norman Rockwell lie. You know that painting Norman Rockwell painted of all the family around the Christmas dining room table with the big fat turkey, and everybody's gorgeous and they're all smiling and getting along? It's a myth. It's a lie. It's an idol. And you know what that lie does? It makes you feel inadequate if you're alone at Christmas, or if your family's not getting along. What family gets along all the time? This is planet Earth. God never said you have to like your relatives. God just said you have to love them. This myth that we're going to be happily ever after on Christmas Day, do you know what happens in our culture? The suicide rate skyrockets because people feel like they're failing. They feel like maybe Christ isn't coming to them because they're not getting along with everybody. It's a lie. Don't lie. The world is broken. Tell it like it is. And then the third thing John the Baptist says is even more surprising to me. He says, be satisfied. He says to the soldiers, be satisfied with your wages. You know, everything in our culture tells us not to be satisfied. It tells us that if you have a car, well, you really need a newer one and a bigger one. If you have a house, you need a better one. You need to be on the river, or you need to be in San Marco or somewhere else. Everything in this country is about what you don't have enough of. But St. John the Baptist is saying, if you want to get right with God, just be grateful for what you've got. The word he uses in the ancient Greek is sufficient. You know, Christ said, my grace is sufficient for you. God has given you enough. If we woke up every day and we gave thanks for everything we had, as opposed to thinking for what we didn't have, it would change the way we think. We are so blessed. I am so blessed to be with you, to be able to stand and breathe and speak and worship and sing. You know, many years ago, I worked in orphanages in Russia before Glasnost and Perestroika, when there were long lines and nothing in the stores and people were hungry. One of the women in the orphanages got an invitation to come to the United States. She would write me about her experience. She said, wow, it was so clean, and all the traffic went in straight lines. She said, I held it together until I got to the grocery store. And my friend must have thought I lost my mind because I stood in the middle of the grocery store crying my eyes out because I had never seen so much food in one place before. It was more than I could handle. We are so blessed. But if you want to see Christ when he comes again, we've got to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. We've got to give. We've got to tell the truth. We've got to be thankful. We are so blessed to be here today. I am so thankful to be with you. I am so thankful to watch the light that's coming into the world. Amen.